I never imagined I'd be diminished in public, especially not at my own sister's engagement celebration. The garden glowed with soft lights, smiles were perfectly practiced, and laughter floated easily through the air. Then my sister tilted her head, grinning, and casually mentioned that I handled paperwork at the courthouse. A few people laughed politely. Someone tapped a spoon against a glass. Heat crawled up my neck, but I stayed silent like I always did. That's when her fiancé turned toward me. He studied my face with the kind of focus that made me uneasy, as if a memory were trying to surface. "So, what do you actually do?" he asked. I didn't explain. I didn't correct her. I didn't justify myself. I said one word. What followed wasn't loud or dramatic. No shouting, no scene, but it quietly altered the way my family saw me forever. My name is Verity, and my family has always loved tidy definitions. Simple titles you can drop into conversation without inviting questions. My sister, Evelyn, fit hers perfectly. She was magnetic, driven, the kind of person who could command attention just by entering a room. I was the other one, dependable, reserved, the one who worked at the courthouse. That description clung to me for years. Holiday dinners, birthday parties, phone calls from relatives who barely knew me. "So you're still doing admin work?" they'd ask, smiling as if it were encouragement. I'd nod. Yeah, still there. And that was that. What they never noticed was how deliberately I'd learned to fade into the background around them. Not because I felt small, but because every time I tried to clarify, their interest evaporated. I learned quickly that my real work made people uncomfortable, especially Evelyn. So I simplified. I downplayed. I let them hold onto the diluted version of me because it kept things calm. At home, nothing ever shifted. Evelyn spoke and the room leaned toward her. My parents listened closely when she talked about promotions, plans, achievements. When I spoke, forks scraped against plates, someone poured another drink. It wasn't unkindness. It was routine, and routine settled deep. Only one person ever truly noticed me. My cousin Lily. She saw the late nights, the urgency in my posture, the phone calls that came at strange hours. She knew the truth without me ever spelling it out. Sometimes she'd squeeze my hand under the table, a silent reminder that I wasn't invisible everywhere. I told myself I didn't need my family's approval. I told myself their opinions carried no weight. That was only partly true, because every time Evelyn joked about my courthouse job, something tightened in my chest. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something heavier, something patient. By the time her engagement party arrived, I already knew my role. I'd show up early, help where needed, smile when introduced, slip out quietly before anyone noticed. I wasn't expecting respect or curiosity. What I didn't expect was a question that refused to let the lie continue. The party was exactly what you'd expect from Evelyn. Immaculate, excessive, designed to impress. String lights crisscrossed the yard like a staged sunset. White flowers filled every corner. A banner with their names hung overhead, looming like a declaration. I arrived early as usual. Before I could even put my purse down, my mother pressed a stack of napkins into my hands and gestured toward the drinks. "Can you take care of that?" she said, already turning away. By the time guests arrived, I'd restocked ice twice and wiped a counter no one had touched. I told myself it was fine. I was familiar with this role. Helpful, quiet, convenient. Then Evelyn arrived. She stepped out of the car radiant, her ring catching the light as if it were made for it. People gathered instantly. Compliments poured in. Phones came out. Her fiancé, Daniel, followed close behind, polished, composed, observant. He greeted people warmly, listened more than he spoke. At first, I barely registered to him. Evelyn made sure everyone knew how impressive he was. Major deals, big figures, success wrapped in numbers that sounded important but blurred together. My parents glowed with pride. I stood at the edge of the crowd, champagne untouched, watching a familiar story replay itself. Then Evelyn noticed me. "Come here," she said, beckoning with a flick of her hand. I don't think everyone's met my sister. She draped an arm around me, smiling wide. "This is Verity. She works at the courthouse. A few nods, polite smiles, passing interest. She's just admin, Evelyn added with a laugh. Keeps things organized.
She shrugged like it was obvious. Front desk stuff. You know how it goes. A few people laughed softly. Someone nodded, satisfied. Like that single sentence explained my entire existence. The familiar heat crept up my neck, that reflex I'd learned early, to smooth things over, to stay small, to let it slide. I lowered my gaze to my drink and inhaled slowly. This wasn't new. It was just public. But Daniel didn't laugh. He was studying me now, not politely, not casually. Really looking. His smile faltered just enough to notice. His eyes searched my face as if something didn't quite match the story he'd been given. There was a pause in him, a hesitation that didn't belong. Dinner was announced, chairs scraped back, and we moved toward the table. I took a seat near the edge, exactly where no one would have to look at me for long. Glasses were raised. Compliments flowed. Evelyn basked in it. Then she lifted her glass again. Some people handle important cases, she said, tilting her head toward Daniel. And some people answer phones. A beat. Right, Verity? Her eyes flicked to me, sharp and challenging, daring me to react. That was when Daniel turned fully in his chair. Hold on, he said, slow and deliberate. Verity, what exactly do you do at the courthouse? The table went still. Every face turned toward me, and suddenly there was nowhere for the story to hide. The question didn't belong to the evening script, and it hung there awkward and exposed like a wire pulled loose. I didn't answer right away. I looked down at my hands resting on the table. My thumb traced the edge of my glass. The wood beneath my fingers felt solid, grounding. I noticed the hum of the lights overhead, the faint clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Life continuing while something quietly split open. In that silence, memories rushed in. Every holiday where I was asked to help instead of asked about my work. Every dinner where my job was reduced to a harmless word that made everyone comfortable. Every time I chose quiet because it felt easier than watching disappointment pass across my parents' faces. Late nights alone in my apartment, shoes still on, rereading case notes. Preparing for mornings no one at this table would ever ask about. That's when it hit me. I hadn't been protecting them by staying silent. I'd been protecting the version of me they preferred, the smaller one. The one who never unsettled anyone. Across from me, Evelyn's smile was too tight. Her jaw locked, eyes sharp, sensing something had shifted even if she didn't yet know what. My mother stared at her plate. My father lifted his glass, then hesitated, uncertain. Daniel just waited. No impatience. No judgment. The old instinct whispered, soften it, keep it vague, save the peace one more time. But another feeling rose instead. Come. Clear. This wasn't about humiliating my sister. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about not erasing myself again. I straightened slightly and set my glass down. The sound was small, but it cut cleanly through the quiet. My heartbeat slowed. Years of fear loosened just enough. I met Daniel's eyes. Then my parents'. Then Evelyn's. I didn't smile. I didn't explain. I said one word. Judge. It landed gently, almost politely, but everything changed. Conversation stopped mid-breath. Forks froze in midair. Even the string lights seemed louder in the sudden stillness. My mother's face drained of color so quickly it startled me. Her lips parted, then closed, searching for words she'd never needed before. My father blinked hard, his grip tightening on his glass before setting it down carefully, like it might break. Evelyn laughed, sharp and brittle. Oh my God, she said, waving her hand. Very funny. I didn't look at her. Daniel hadn't laughed. He hadn't moved at all. His expression shifted into something unmistakable, recognition snapping into place. He leaned back slowly, studying me like pieces of a memory were finally aligning. Judge, he repeated quietly. Then his eyes widened just slightly. Verity Cole, he said. Downtown courthouse. No one breathed. You presided over my case last year. The corporate dispute. I stood in front of you more than once. The silence thickened. Evelyn's smile collapsed. What are you talking about? She snapped. She works admin. She answers phones. You've met her like twice. Daniel didn't turn toward her. I know what admin work looks like, he said evenly. And I know what a judge looks like. He faced me again. You were fair. Direct. You listened. That's why I remember. My father finally found his voice.
He looked at me like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. You're a judge, he asked, disbelief weighing down every word. Since when? 3 years, I said calmly. My mother frowned. shaking her head as if the sentence itself was wrong. But you told us you were assisting someone. I was, I replied. At first. After that, no one ever asked. That's when it finally reached them, not in one sharp moment, but slowly, uncomfortably. The version of my life they'd repeated for years hadn't gone unchallenged because it was accurate. It stayed because it was easy, because it didn't disrupt the roles they were comfortable with. Evelyn shifted in her seat, pushing her chair back a few inches, her eyes bouncing around the table. This is absurd, she said. You let everyone believe you were just admin. Who does that? I met her eyes for the first time that night. I didn't lie, I said. I just stopped correcting you. Her cheeks burned. You planned this, she snapped. You waited until my engagement party to humiliate me. I shook my head. You did that yourself. You asked a question in front of everyone. I answered it. She spun toward Daniel, her voice sharp. You knew. You knew she was a judge and you didn't tell me. I didn't know, he said evenly. I never connected Judge Cole to your sister. You never said her last name. You never gave her space to speak. That silence hit harder than anything else. Around the table, reactions rippled. My uncle stared down, mumbling to himself. My grandmother reached across and gently held my wrist, as if she'd been waiting years to do it. I always suspected, she said softly. You carry yourself with intention. Evelyn stood up, so suddenly her chair screeched against the stone patio, the sound cutting through the air. This was supposed to be my night, she said, her voice trembling. And you ruined it. You always do. You always make things about you. I stayed seated. My voice didn't rise. I didn't say anything until you mocked me, until you turned me into a punchline in front of your fiancé and our family. That wasn't an accident. That was a decision. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, there was no quick reply waiting. Daniel stood. Evelyn, he began carefully. The way you spoke to her. Stop, she cut in. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on the side of what's real, he said. And I don't know how I ignored this for so long. How I let you talk about your own sister like that. That was the break. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just final. Evelyn looked around and realized something had changed. The attention she'd always owned had slipped away. No one was laughing. No one stepped in to defend her. Even my parents sat frozen, caught between the daughter they'd elevated and the one they'd overlooked. This is unbelievable, she whispered. You think you're better than me now? No, I said. I think I finally stopped shrinking. She stared at me, fear flickering behind the anger, then turned and walked inside, her heels striking the floor like the last word in an argument. Daniel hesitated, glancing back at me. There was conflict in his face, but also something steadier, respect. I need to talk to her, he said quietly. I nodded. After they left, no one spoke. The champagne warmed. Plates went untouched. Eventually, my mother reached for my hand. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, her voice barely there. I tried, I said. Every time I did, you looked away. No one argued. In that silence, something unfamiliar settled in me. Not victory, relief. Like setting down a burden I hadn't realized I was allowed to release. The next morning, I woke to a quiet phone and an unexpected calm. No anxiety. No replaying the night. Just sunlight through the blinds and the distant sound of the city moving on. Then the messages came. Missed calls, long explanations, awkward apologies, relatives suddenly eager to reconnect. My parents left 2 voicemails. I didn't listen to either. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. Daniel stood there, exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept but had faced a lot of truth. We sat across from each other, coffee growing cold between us. He didn't defend her. He didn't justify anything. I can't unsee it now, he said. The way she spoke to you. The way everyone allowed it. I nodded. There was nothing more to say. I don't know what this means for us, he admitted. But I know I can't pretend anymore. When he left, my apartment felt lighter, not empty, just real. A few days later, Evelyn came by without warning. No makeup. Hair pulled back. A version of her that never showed up to family events. We didn't hug. We didn't argue. I was afraid, she said eventually, of being average, of coming second. I believed her. I was never competing with you, I said. She nodded slowly, like that idea was new. Things didn't magically heal. We weren't suddenly close, but something shifted. My parents started asking questions and waiting for answers. At dinners, Lily smiled at me, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to justify my existence. I used to think staying quiet was kindness. I was wrong. Silence doesn't protect anyone. It just teaches people how small they're allowed to make you. You don't owe anyone a diminished version of yourself to keep things comfortable. And if you've ever hidden your growth so others wouldn't feel threatened, you're not alone. Tell your story. You deserve to be seen.